The Golden Bird. Once upon a time, a certain king had a beautiful garden, and in the garden stood a tree which had golden apples. These apples were always counted, and about the time when they began to grow ripe, it was found that every night one of them would go missing. The king became very angry at this and ordered the gardener to keep watch all night under the tree. The gardener set his oldest son to watch, but about 12 o'clock, the oldest son fell asleep, and in the morning, another one of the golden apples was missing. Then the second son was ordered to watch, and at midnight he too fell asleep, and in the morning another golden apple was gone. Then the youngest son offered to keep watch. But the gardener at first would not let him, because he was afraid that something bad might happen to him. However, at last he agreed, and the young man laid down under the tree to watch. As the clock struck 12, he heard a rustling noise in the air, and a bird came flying. The bird was made of pure gold, and as the bird was eating one of the apples, the gardener's son jumped up and shot an arrow at it. But the arrow didn't hurt the bird. The bird only dropped a golden feather from its tail and then flew away. The golden feather was brought to the king in the morning, and all the wise men of the kingdom were called together. Everyone agreed that the feather was worth more than all the wealth of the kingdom. But the king said, "Just one feather is of no use to me. I must have the whole bird." Then the gardener's oldest son set out. He thought he would find the golden bird very easily. And when he had gone but a little way, he came to a forest, and by the side of the forest he saw a fox sitting. So he took his bow and got ready to shoot at the fox. Then the fox said, "Do not shoot me, for I will give you good advice. I know what your business is, and that you want to find the golden bird. You will reach a village in the evening, and when you get there, you will see two inns opposite to each other, one of which is very nice and beautiful to look at. Do not go in there, but rest for the night in the other inn, even though it may look to you to be very poor and uncomfortable." But the oldest son thought to himself, "What can such an animal as this know about the matter?" So he shot his arrow at the fox, but he missed it, and the fox ran into the forest. Then the oldest son went on his way, and in the evening he came to the village where the two inns were. And in one of these inns there were people singing and dancing and eating, but the other inn looked very dirty and poor. "I would be very stupid," he said to himself, "if I went to that dirty inn and left this nice inn. So he went into the nice-looking inn, and ate, and drank, and relaxed, and he soon forgot all about the bird. And he even forgot about his country, too. Time passed on, and as the oldest son did not come back, and no news of him was heard, the second son set out. And the same thing happened to him. He met the fox, who gave him the same good advice. But when he came to the two inns, his older brother was standing at the window of the nice inn, where a big party was happening. And he called to the second son to come in. And the second son could not resist the temptation. So he went in and forgot about the golden bird and his country in the same way as his brother. Time passed on again, and the youngest son too wished to set out into the wide world to search for the golden bird. But his father would not listen to his wish for a long while, because he liked his youngest son very much, and he was afraid that something bad might happen to him and stop him from coming back, just like his brothers. However, at last he agreed that his son could go, since his son would not stop asking. The youngest son set out, and he too came to the forest, and he too met the fox, and heard the same good advice. But he was thankful to the fox, and did not try to shoot the fox, as his brothers had done. So the fox said to him, "Sit upon my tail, and you will travel faster." So he sat down, and the fox began to run. And they traveled a long way, as quickly as the wind. When they came to the village, the youngest son followed the fox's advice, and without looking around him, he went straight to the poor and dirty inn, and stayed there all night. In the morning, the fox came again, and met him as he was beginning his journey. The fox said, "Go straight ahead until you come to a castle. In front of the castle, there will be a whole group of soldiers fast asleep and snoring. Take no notice of them, but go into the castle and keep going until you come to a room where the golden bird sits in a wooden cage. Nearby the wooden cage, there is a beautiful golden cage. But do not try to take the bird out of the wooden cage and put it into the golden one. If you do, you will be sorry later." Then the fox stretched out his tail again, and the young man sat down on the fox's tail, and they traveled a long way, as quickly as the wind. When they got to the castle, everything in front of the castle was exactly as the fox had said it would be. So the youngest son went in and found the room where the golden bird was sitting in a wooden cage, and where nearby was the golden cage. And nearby the golden cage, there were the 3 golden apples that had been lost before. The youngest son thought to himself, "It would be a pity to bring away such a fine bird in this poor cage." So he opened the door of the wooden cage and took hold of the bird and put it into the golden cage. But the bird let out such a loud scream that all the soldiers woke up, and they took him prisoner and carried him before the king of the castle. The next morning, the court met to judge him. And when they had heard everything, the court sentenced him to die, unless he could bring the king a golden horse which could run as fast as the wind. And if he could do this, then he would have the golden bird given to him for his own. So the youngest son set out once more on his journey. He was very sad and worried when suddenly he met his friend the fox. The fox said to him, "Do you see now what has happened because you didn't listen to my advice? I will still, however, tell you how to find the golden horse, but you must do as I tell you. You must go straight until you come to a castle. In the castle, the golden horse stands in his stall. By his side, there will be a groom who will be fast asleep in snoring. Take away the golden horse quietly, but be sure to put the old leather saddle on the golden horse. Do not take the golden saddle that is close by it." Then the youngest son sat down on the fox's tail, and they traveled a long way, as quickly as the wind. Everything was just as the fox had said it would be. The groom was sleeping with his hand upon the golden saddle. But when the youngest son looked at the horse, he thought it was a great pity to put the leather saddle on it. "I will give him the good one," he said. "I am sure he deserves it." As he took up the golden saddle, the groom woke up and cried out so loudly that all the guards ran in and took the youngest son prisoner. And in the morning, he was again brought before the court to be judged, and was sentenced to die. But it was agreed that if he could find and bring back the beautiful princess, then he could live, and have the bird and the horse given to him for his own. Then the youngest son went on his way. He was very sad, but the old fox came and said, "Why didn't you listen to me? If you had listened to me, you would have carried away both the bird and the horse. But yet I will once more give you advice. Go straight on, and in the evening you will arrive at a castle. At 12 o'clock every night, the princess goes to the bathing house. Go up to her and give her a kiss, and she will let you lead her away. But take care not to let her go to say goodbye to her father and mother." Then the fox stretched out his tail, and away they went, traveling a long way, as quickly as the wind. When they came to the castle, everything was exactly as the fox had said it would be, And at 12 o'clock, the young man met the princess going to the bath and gave her the kiss. And she agreed to run away with him. But she begged with many tears to go and say goodbye to her father. At first, the youngest son refused. But the princess cried still more and more, and she fell at his feet, till at last he agreed. But as soon as the princess came to her father's house, the guards woke up, and the youngest son was taken prisoner again. Then the youngest son was brought before the king, and the king said, "You shall never have my daughter, unless in 8 days you dig away the hill that stops the view from my window." Now, this hill was so big that all the people in the whole world could not take it away. And when the youngest son had worked for 7 days and had done very little, the fox came and said, "Lie down and go to sleep. I will work for you." And in the morning, the youngest son woke up, and the hill was gone. So he went happily to the king and told him that now the hill was gone, and that the king must keep his promise and give him the princess. Then the king had to keep his promise, and the youngest son and the princess went away. And the fox came and said to him, "We will have all three, the princess, the horse, and the bird." "Ah," said the young man, "that would be a great thing. But how can we do it?" "If you will only listen," said the fox, "it can be done. When you come to the king and he asks for the beautiful princess, you must say, 'Here she is.' Then he will be very happy, and you will get on the golden horse that they will give you, and shake hands with them to say goodbye. But shake hands with the princess last. Then lift her quickly onto the horse behind you and ride away as fast as you can." The youngest son did everything the fox had told him to, and everything went perfectly. He was able to ride away with the princess. Then, afterwards, the fox told him, "When you come to the castle where the bird is, I will stay with the princess at the door, and you will ride in and speak to the king. And when he sees that it is the golden horse, he will bring out the golden bird. But you must sit still and say that you want to look at the bird first to see whether it is the real golden bird. And when you get the bird into your hands, ride away fast." This too happened as the fox said. They carried off the bird. The princess got on the horse again, and they rode on to a great forest. Then the fox came and said, "Please, kill me and cut off my head and my feet." But the youngest son would not do it. So the fox said, "I will still give you some good advice. You must be careful of two things. Do not save any robbers, and do not sit by the side of any river." Then the fox went away. "Well," thought the youngest son, "it should be easy to keep that advice." The youngest son rode on with the princess until at last he came to the village where he had left his two brothers. And there he heard a great noise. And when he asked what was the matter, the people said, "Two robbers are going to be killed." As he came nearer, he saw that the two men were his brothers, who had become robbers. So he said, "Isn't there any way to save them?" But the people said that the only way for him to save his brothers was to buy their freedom with all the money he had. The youngest son did not stop to think about it, but paid all his money. And his brothers were freed. And they all left the village together and started traveling back towards their home. And as they came to the forest where the fox had first met them, it was so cool and nice that the two brothers said, "Let us sit down by the side of the river and rest a while to eat and drink." The youngest son forgot the fox's advice, and he said, "Yes." And he sat down on the side of the river. And while the youngest son was relaxing, suspecting nothing, his brothers went behind him and pushed him off the riverbank and into the river. Then they took the princess, the horse, and the bird and went home to the king and said, "All of these things we have won by our hard work." Then there was a big party and everyone celebrated. But the horse would not eat, the bird would not sing, and the princess cried. Meanwhile, the youngest son fell to the bottom of the river. Luckily, the river was not deep, but his bones were almost broken. And the riverbank was so steep that he could find no way to climb out. Then the old fox came once more and scolded him for not following his advice. "If you had only listened to me, none of these bad things would have happened," said the fox. "Yet I cannot leave you here. So grab hold of my tail and hold tight." Then the fox pulled him out of the river, and as he got up upon the bank, the fox said to him, "Your brothers will kill you if they find you in the kingdom." So the youngest son disguised himself as a poor man and came secretly to the king's dinner party. As soon as he came inside the room, the horse began to eat, and the bird began to sing, and the princess stopped crying. Then the youngest son went to the king and told him all about the bad things that his brothers had done. And his brothers were captured and punished. And the youngest son was given the princess again, and moreover, he was named heir to the king, which meant that he would become the future king after the king died. A long time after that, he went on a walk one day in the forest, and the old fox met him. And the fox asked him to kill him and cut off his head and his feet. And at last he did so. And in a moment, the fox was changed into a man. And it turned out that he was really the brother of the princess who had been missing for many, many years. And they all lived happily ever after.